Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transit. Today we're reviewing the astrology from February 1st through the 7th, and we're your host. I'm Maddie.
Yay.
All right, and let's get started. We had a quieter week last week, but this week we will open up the month of February with a full moon in Leo. So that is going to be the main aspect for this month is like this lunation, which is also the last lunation that we'll have that's not an eclipse for a month. So that's something to think about too. We do have eclipses starting in February, but this full moon is opposite the huge stellium of planets that we have in Aquarius. So if you remember, Mercury's there, or Mars is there too, Venus is there, and Pluto and the Sun. And so I think it's going to really be linked to that. Um, Haley and I were talking like at the beginning of the podcast of like we haven't actually really noticed Aquarius is that loud. I mean, it might be part of the ways that our charts are situated as like Capricorn stellium was louder for us, but I wonder if this full moon will really start to illuminate like what is happening in the Aquarius part of your chart and really make that obvious to you as like that's kind of what the full moon will do. It's just like a planet in itself. What do you
Oh, yeah,
think about that?
yeah, like the full moon is like super illuminating. Yeah, I could definitely feel that. Yeah. I think there too will be like some interesting, full moons always bring up like the axis points, right? Because it's like opposite of like whatever position the sun is at. So, it just really brings a lot of awareness to the Aquarius Leo axis in your chart. So while there's a lot of focus on Aquarius right now, I think we're also going to be understanding, how maybe either like Leo ties into that or how we're separating from the Leo energy a bit to like dive more into the Aquarian energy. Especially because full moons can be associated with like shedding and letting go. So it can be like maybe you have to let go of some part of the Leo house or the focus on self in some way because Leo is very self-focused, to focus more on like these collective or like larger energies.
Yeah, I think that's important that like, the opposition house is important because I do think when everything was going through in Capricorn, we had that opposition to Jupiter in Cancer. And
Mhm.
so I felt like that was really loud in terms of like when we were experiencing the Capricorn stellium was like stepping out of your comfort zone, stepping out of the places that is safe and protected and nurturing, which is very much Jupiter and Cancer, and like being put to work or doing something that's bigger or like outside of you. And so maybe without that opposition, we're just kind of floating around with a lot of Aquarius energy, and the full moon will really be like, yeah, as like Leo is really much the sign of the sun. It really is the sign of our ego. Like, what part of our ego is being asked to step away or like shed from to support like the community, the collective, or relationships, or to be more aware of the experience that you're having within your country or your government, things like that is very loud right now. I think we're seeing, I mean, we saw all the Pluto aspects. It's just like all the things that are happening in our country with Minnesota and everything there.
Yeah, I think it's a very like Aquarian season in general. I think we're all starting to like come together collectively because ICE is giving us, the stuff that's happening with ICE is like giving us this
Mhm.
opposition to the government, which is making like our communities bond together a lot more. And I think that's, very much Aquarian, like looking to the neighbor and, our communities at large and how can we, just group together with them. So, um, yeah, I saw this video of like people like I guess ICE was coming. I think it was Minnesota, but people were like yelling to like shut their doors and like go inside and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it's just super interesting times. It's like history. It's so interesting to see like history in the making because I know that this is definitely something like they'll talk about in textbooks and stuff like that. So it's so interesting to see like history in the making. Um, this will definitely be like something we tell our children and grandchildren about. Like that was such a crazy time.
Yeah, I mean, I really do feel like that, like the Mars, Pluto, and like just all the planets meaning Pluto was just like, this isn't the government that we want to identify with. Like, there is this like separation of like the American people and like the American government, of like, this isn't what really represents us. This is just power that is over us. And then it's having to create that other sense of community that you're talking about, like locally, or just like in the field of like online or wherever, that you're at. And yeah, maybe this full moon kind of takes that one step further and you just shed some part of yourself that maybe was holding you back from supporting the community or it doesn't even have to be this large and collective, just be in your chart, wherever Leo and Aquarius sits, like maybe you need to let go of something within the Leo space so that you can chase or better support what's happening in the Aquarius space of your life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So definitely, yeah, definitely during this time, look at like those access points, and see, what themes are coming up. What are we shedding or letting go of in Leo to like step into an Aquarius? And I think you were right, Maddie, by saying like the Aquarian part of our chart, I think is going to get louder after this full moon. Um,
Yeah,
unless for some
because
reason, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. I was just gonna say because like this full moon isn't really making any aspects, but like the moon later this night will go into that square with Uranus, and that is really the aspects that we'll be seeing with these Aquarius planets. So like it might just be that first trigger of things that are like really starting to start changing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that moves us into the next one on the third. So we just have moon transits for that Monday. Let me move ahead a day. So the next day, the moon will still be in Leo, and like you said, squaring Uranus.
Yeah.
And then on the third, which is that Tuesday, we have the moon moving into Virgo. But on that same day, we have Uranus stationing direct. And I think it happens a little bit later in the evening because it's still retrograde in my chart right here. But I think it's happening a little bit later in the evening. And with
Yeah.
Uranus stationing direct, it's been retrograde since September 5th. So we've had quite a bit of time with it moving retrograde. And this was its last and final dip into Taurus before it fully moves into Gemini. And it will fully move into Gemini the 26th of April of this year, but we do still have a couple months of it hanging out in Taurus. Um, with this like final little bit in Taurus, I think because it's not retrograde anymore, because it's going to move direct, I think it's like kind of some more, depending on the aspects, but a more of a like directed change, like whatever change that you're going to make or whatever change is happening has some sort of like direction as you can see it like wrapping up in the sign of Taurus. At its final degrees, we're kind of saying goodbye to the major change that we've been experiencing with Uranus and Taurus over the past, what is it, about 7 years that Uranus is in Taurus?
Yeah. It was like 7 or 8 years. Yeah. Because it was like 2018.
Yeah. So, yeah, Uranus and Taurus definitely like creates instability in some forms. Taurus is very much about stability and just making sure that you have your resources. And, it would be like having savings in the bank or having like a garden to like feed your family or something like this. And Uranus is like very disruptive of those resources in this sign. So, yeah, like I said, we might see like these final disruptions or a way that we're going to like mend these disruptions moving forward as we move from like Uranus into Gemini. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think that Uranus and Taurus has, in the large scale, disrupted a lot of our economy and like our food and, things with that. It's like changing the way that we feed our country, but also just like 2020 and all that was a lot brought on by like Uranus trining a lot of what was happening in Capricorn, so just disrupting the economy in that way. And so like I think we're seeing that with like the last dip of Uranus and Taurus because like again on the larger scale, this is when we really were starting to see some of the effects from the tariffs and just like what's happening with our current economic state. And then of course Uranus and Gemini for the country is war. So, it's like the destabilizing of the economy, which happens and then creates disruption of like the people and like of the social sphere. So, um, but yeah, there is just like this one last thing or a message. It's been really loud for me in my career. Like I think I talked about a lot of this before, but you're honest throughout the entire transit that's been in my 10th house since 2018. Like I've just bounced around from jobs. I've never stayed at a job for longer than like a year. And like I've been at this job for the longest, which is only 2.5 years, but that's the longest that I've ever been in a job since 2018, which is wild. But like that's Uranus in your 10th. And I do feel like there's this last little bit of like real destabilizing things that I'm just working through that will hopefully wrap up in April. Um, but just that in your chart, and then what that means for this week is that it will probably be louder this week than like whatever story has been playing out these last couple months of Uranus and Taurus. Like when it stations direct, you're going to be like, this is what I'm in the middle of, like this is what I've been dealing with. And now it's like maybe it's shifting directions, like it's changing directions in the sky, but you're like, it's still in the middle of it. You're still navigating it.
Yeah, for sure. And you brought up a good point to like check what planets like Uranus has been interacting with. Um, because it's definitely bringing in like multiple themes. Like
Right.
for me, it's making an aspect to a planet in my 10th, and it's also making an aspect to a planet in my 7th. So there's a lot of like stories also that I've been going through with like relationships and career as it relates to like my identity and how people perceive me.
Hmm.
So yeah, like checking like your transit. So it's whatever is going to be, whatever planets you have at 27 or 28 or 29 degrees, as Uranus moves forward, is going to like clue you in onto like a lot of like the story and how Uranus has been super disruptive towards these areas of your life for better or for worse.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is gonna be kind of loud and like, yeah, this full moon is not directly squaring it, but it's like kind of giving you the precursor because the new moon will be squaring it. So the February is a lot of Uranus energy this month, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, could see that a lot. It's very interesting too, like Aquarius, like in modern astrology, associated with Uranus.
Right.
It's not in traditional, but it's interesting to have like Aquarius season if you're looking at things from a modern lens to be like heavy Uranus energy.
Yeah, I mean, it does fit them perfectly. It's like, look at all this disruption because we're going through Aquarius season. And it's like traditional people are like, well, it's because Uranus is doing this. But it's like they aligned though at the same time.
Oh, yeah. It's like even if you look at like there are a bunch of different like avenues of astrology and like there's also like Vedic, and even if you look through things at a through a different lens, it ends up somehow like painting a very similar picture, just
Yeah.
different how do you say, like just different stories coming out. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I read a whole book about that, how astrology is just more of a divination because of that. Like there's no scientific way to prove it. So we need to recognize that it is more spiritual, like divination techniques than it is literal logical techniques, which I know is a whole debate, but it would explain why all the different systems work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, even like there are people that even say like that there's like an art to counseling, or there's like an art to like
Yeah.
stuff, and there's a part of everything that we can't prove. Like not everything has 100% proven science behind it. So
Yep. But Anyways, yes. Well, it doesn't matter because the next aspect on Thursday, the 5th, is Mercury's going to square Uranus. So, we'll just continue the same theme for this week at this point. But yeah, I think this is again, like I kind of talked about, yes, or the last aspect is like this is where a lot of the messages are coming in is to like, what is this last bit in Uranus and Taurus for you? Like, what are you navigating? And this is probably the piece this day, especially it's going to be where it starts to pull into your Aquarius house. Like maybe before it was just for Uranus and like whatever was hitting you natally or just like transiting in general. And now it's like the Taurus and Aquarius houses are now getting linked together in some way. And it's creating again this instability or disruption in conflict between the two because those two houses are naturally conflicting each other. If you give energy to one, it's harder for you to give energy to the other. And it's going to create the disruption, or the disruption in one house is going to affect the other house.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, for sure. This can also be like speaking to disruptions with like whatever rules in your chart. So if you have,
mm,
like like look at Virgo and Gemini and what kind of disruptions are happening to those two houses in particular as we move forward.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think Mercury actually it kind of like ties in well to our next transit because Mercury will kind of have a disruption and then lose its strength as it moves into Pisces. Did you want to say anything else about Mercury squaring Uranus?
Yeah, just maybe just disrupting messages, just like shocking news or just things that are, you know, unexpected information coming your way. But that is a good point. Like, yeah, then it will go into Pisces.
Right. Yeah. So it is debilitated in Pisces. So we do move forward on the 6th. Is Mercury in exaltation or in domicile in Virgo? It's domicile, right?
Yes, it's both.
Both domicile and exaltation.
Yeah, it's a special one. So it's both fallen and detriment in Pisces.
Well, that's fun. So we have solid in detriment, Mercury moving into Pisces. And you know, Mercury wasn't like exceptionally strong in Aquarius, but nothing's really happening. Like it wasn't doing anything bad. But now we have it moving into this like debilitated position and it's going to just lose a lot of strength. And I think when we're moving from air to water, we're moving from like having maybe resources and ideas to something that's kind of like more stagnant and slower and maybe is like getting caught up in the emotional side of things instead of like being able to rely on facts or reason or just checking in with like some more logical things. Um so we do just have a Mercury now that is just overwhelmed by emotion. And I think we are probably very much going to see this like in the progression of things politically. Like I think we could definitely see a lot of people very emotionally activated um and like just speaking a lot out of emotion rather than what's actually happening or what's actually going on. It's more so how do I feel about what I think is going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of like the sequence of events where Mercury gets the disruption from Uranus, and then it just like, maybe that's too when like the logic falls apart because there was some shocking information or a shocking challenge or change to things. And now Mercury moving into Pisces is just kind of like, I can't look at things logically because it fell apart. It didn't play out the way that I expected. This happened instead. And now what do I do? And so it is more of like having to lean more onto trust and faith and just like general feelings that are not concrete or logical, which Mercury doesn't really like. So that's just where it struggles a bit because it's like you're trying to be making sense of feelings. Like, why do I feel this way? I don't know. There's no reason to feel that way. You just do. So like accept that, and it can be difficult for some people who have maybe a really more irrational Mercury, especially if you have one in Gemini and Virgo, you're making hard aspects now. So you may be struggling a bit more with that sort of train of thought. And yeah, I mean, communication in general will also not be very clear. It will be more poetic and like, why didn't you read my mind? You know?
Mhm. I know. Yeah. Yeah, Mercury in Pisces like expects you to like know how they feel. And
Yeah.
you might be like expecting other people to like, isn't it obvious that I feel this way? Isn't it obvious, And it's like just not obvious to anybody. So yeah, just like through this Mercury period, it's only going to last about 3 weeks, but through this Mercury period,
No, it's not gonna only last 3 weeks. Mercury goes retrograde here. It's gonna last over a month.
it's going to last over a month. But anyways, through this Mercury, I'm actually thinking about like it moving through your eighth house, but through this Mercury period, just like
Oh God.
just be aware that like things are probably not as they seem. And yeah, just don't expect like the world like to light the world on fire in like your Virgo and Gemini houses. Like those are definitely getting more of like a weighted blanket over them. They just don't have as much strength as they do otherwise. So yeah, but when Mercury moves into Aries later, it's going to be a lot better. But for now, Mercury's not doing the best.
No, yeah, we're gonna have a lot of Mercury here. We're gonna have a long Mercury transit here, which
Mhm.
really sucks because Mercury's gonna rule one of the eclipses. We will have an eclipse in Pisces or in Virgo, and it will still be in Pisces. And so, like, yeah, I mean, I just think we're gonna see a bit of a downfall, but Venus is not too far behind. I think that's next week. Venus will be in Pisces, so sh that will be
So,
really nice.
yeah, when she comes in to interact with Mercury, she's in her exaltation, so that'll be nice.
Yeah. So there will be a little bit of a back and forth. And maybe it will just be nice to like give your brain a break and stop trying to think logically about everything and just kind of go with the flow more.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely going to ask you to like rely on faith and like things that you can't see. And maybe at times you're going to feel like you have to be hopeful when there's like no hope to be had. And you just have to like Pisces very much asks you to like a higher power or like, you know, somehow seeing that there's like a greater purpose to all of what's happening.
Yeah, the Jupiter portion of Jupiter ruling Pisces is like there is a reason for this, theoretically or religiously or whatever, but there is a reason, even if it's not logical.
Or humane.
Yeah, yeah, or humane at all. Yeah, for sure. Uh, but we'll talk more about that because we'll have Mercury here forever, so we'll understand it more. On the very end of Saturday, the next day of the 7th, is when Venus is going to come into a square with Uranus. So it'll be that evening, but you'll be feeling it all Saturday. And generally, like again, with Uranus kind of loud this week, it just will be loud. So again, whatever kind of messages that you got from Mercury squaring Uranus earlier in the week, it is now going to be the literal shifting and changing of something in your life, whether it be a relationship or a desire or a thing that you want for yourself or that you want for other people in your life. It's changing now. Literal things are shifting, especially with Venus ruling Uranus. So this is really gonna feel like probably louder in the Taurus part of your chart, but yeah, the moon also opposite Uranus later that week. I guess that'll be next week, but still a lot of Uranus energy right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a big shift on like your desire, like how you're hoping things to be and how they're actually shifting. Um,
Yeah.
just like a
What
big,
you actually want,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Like it's like I see, like I clearly see my life like I want my life to go in this direction, but like these are the things that are happening right now and it's not making sense and it is seeming like perhaps I'm getting further away from what I want than like closer to what I want. Um yeah, and I think that that's also happening very much collectively. But it sometimes it can be like yeah, just like destruction in the moment that we can't really see what the purpose of it is, which kind of like reflects back on that Mercury and Pisces that we just talked about. But like, it's like there's all this destruction and we don't know why, or all this change and we don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a theme when we have like a line of planets like this coming into a square, this aspect or this planet, of this case Uranus. It's just there's just this theme of things falling apart or this theme of things being unstable, especially in the Taurus, but also Aquarius parts of your chart, where it's just a progression of like events happening that's like, oh, there's that thing again that's just, crumbling, or it's just being shooken up or innovated or changed and disrupted in some way, and it's like what we're seeing just play out over and over because we're gonna see this more next week too, and into the week after. So it's like a continuous storyline that's kind of happening, and it's involving change. Something is going to change in your life.
Mhm. Yeah, but you're right. Like, the sun's gonna come up to square Uranus, Mars will square Uranus. So we just do
Mhm.
more interactions with this um, Aquarius part of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. My advice would to be to, not try to hang on to things if you feel if it, things are really starting to feel like they're falling apart or that they are kind of crumbling in some way, just like let them go or just like lean into that because more of it is only going to come.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say that. And then, like, as we move forward, like when we're in Pisces season, everything's going to move into a sextile with Uranus. So it's like, it's not until later that we're going to see some of like the positive aspects of change. So I think right now is very much like a bit of disruption and destruction and change that
Hmm.
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good, but it will later, hopefully.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, same thing, but hopefully.
we'll see what happens. Yeah, February is a really, really big month. We'll start eclipse seasons. In 2 weeks, we'll have Saturn entering Aries next week. We'll have a Saturn Neptune conjunction, so huge month, and that's why this week is going to be setting the stage for what's to come.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. All right, if you want more from us, we are kind of on TikTok and Instagram at Two Girls Talk Transits, and mostly on YouTube at Two Girls Talk Transits. You can follow us on there, and also our links and everything are down below.
Okay,
Okay, we'll see you next week.
you. Bye.